If you are anything like me, then when you imagine exploration that can satisfy your wildest dreams, you imagine this. But what if I told you that some of the best sense of exploration and wonder that you can get in a video game looks like this? Out of all of the video game genres that exist, the Metroidvania is one that I've always seen to be incredibly popular. But when I go online to check out what it's like, I'm always met with fans who talk about it being so enchanting and atmospheric, when all I saw is just a character always at the center of a 2D platformer, slowly getting more and more powerful over time. After all, when comparing to the sheer scope of some games in the modern day, when you're given hundreds of quests, side quests, and collectibles scattered about in a massive map that you can almost guarantee you will never see all of, you look at these smaller games with all the tight platforming and think, man, there's no way this game has that much to do. After all, look at me, I'm finding my 3,268th feather collectible in Assassin's Creed 27. The sheer amount of content and exploration value pales in comparison to this masterpiece. To that I say, ha, Assassin's Creed fan, loser. Just kidding. To that I say, I was in your shoes as well. Trying to get your money's worth out of every hour in a game is an important value for people, and one way to convince people that think like that is padding out the game with vapid collectibles or fetch quests that don't really add much to your enjoyment. However, once I actually dipped my toe into the Metroidvania genre, there was no turning back. Before talking about my thoughts on why Metroidvanias are like a pure extract of the sense of wonder, I need to talk about the history of the genre and where it originated from. The term Metroidvania comes from the combination of two primary game series, Castlevania and Metroid. Metroid is a series made by Nintendo where you play as an exosuit-wearing badass exploring unknown planets and killing mysterious aliens. If that sounds badass, it totally is. It's an amazing series. The game that started the Metroid series on the Nintendo Entertainment System in 1986 is, well, kinda old and very hard. By all means, it is a vital piece into making the series what it is today, but all I'm gonna say is you won't see me putting a bunch of hours into this game. Metroid on the NES does deserve massive props for one reason alone though, that being it is one of the first games that advocates for women in power armor. And honestly, need I say more? The second game series that helped make the genre is Castlevania, which not only is a series with so many entries that it makes a One Piece fan sweat, but overall most of the games have a solid level of quality, if not being superb genre-defining games. The game that is responsible for creating the Castlevania series is just a game called Castlevania, also on the Nintendo Entertainment System. While I have never played this game, fans to this day advocate for it and say that it is at least worth a playthrough, despite also being called extremely difficult by most players. Both of the games just discussed, while important to their own respective series and the genre of Metroidvania as a whole, are not what brought the games to another level. That honor goes to each game's subsequent entries, Castlevania Symphony of the Night and Super Metroid. Both of these games have such a massive legacy that most of you have undoubtedly heard of both of these titles before, but for those underneath rock dwellers, I got you guys covered. Castlevania Symphony of the Night, released in 1997, is a game where you play as Dracula's son Alucard looking to explore Dracula's castle and eventually defeat the main man himself. This game initially was a flop, but over time it gained a cult following and became a big hit for Konami at the time. Symphony of the Night is steeped in a thick, gothic atmosphere where everything from the gameplay, level design, and music reflect one thing: Dracula has got style. This immersive atmosphere, combined with a deep sense of exploration, a non-linear level design, and bringing RPG elements into the mix, have all made Symphony of the Night a legend in gaming and is one of the pillars of the Metroidvania genre.
She is such a bad bitch though. I will fuck the shit out of that robot, man. I'm not even...
Super Metroid, on the other hand, is not only a pillar of the Metroidvania genre, but science fiction video games in general, as it is one of the most notable examples of alien worlds being brought to life when exploring them. In Super Metroid, you play as Samus, a bounty hunter sent to an alien world to scope out the planet in the pursuit of finding a Metroid spotted on the planet. This game is one of the few games I've experienced where everything you encounter is distinctly alien, from the monsters to the ambient music to the architecture you find throughout the game. Super Metroid was arguably the first Metroid game to focus on exploration and letting players be immersed in the world. Super Metroid is so damn fun and holds up incredibly well to this day. To drive home this point, recently I went with a group of friends to a local arcade. While I was playing there, I saw a Super Nintendo Entertainment System with Super Metroid plugged in. While I had played other games with my friends that night, for a whole entire hour while my friends were going around playing arcade games, I was just sitting there playing Super Metroid and getting immersed in a game I had already played on someone else's save file, and I adored it. Super Metroid has a feel to it that almost no other game can replicate, truly an incredible game that is worth remembering. However, despite thinking this way recently, I did not always love Metroidvanias. In fact, I would go as far as to say I actively disliked them. My history with Metroidvanias started in 2019 when I bought a game on my Nintendo Switch called Hollow Knight, a game that at the time had garnered universal praise from almost every person who played it. So I thought, why not? The guy in the case looks like an adorable little guy. And I really didn't like it. For context, I grew up in one of the generations when video games had already been massively popular and an established medium. And because of that, a lot of trends had already been established and present that I was so used to having them when I played a video game. The most important feature most modern games have adopted for the purposes of this video is having an easily accessible map at all times that not only tells you exactly where you are at all times, but oftentimes also tells you where to go and the fastest route in order to get there. With that in mind, when I booted up Hollow Knight for the first time, I was literally dropped from the sky and told to explore the darkness below with initially no map and barely an inkling on where I should go. This would leave me wandering for a little while, dying, getting lost on getting back to where I was, and overall feeling scared of the idea of being lost in a directionless map. Because of these different factors, over the next 5 years, I would restart Hollow Knight and proclaim, this is it. This is the time that I'm going to beat it and finally understand the game and Metroidvanias overall. 4 different times. That's right, I restarted Hollow Knight 4 different times. If it wasn't clear already, I am stubborn, and often that, combined with my fear of missing out, will lead me to keep trying over and over again to not only like, but understand why certain media is beloved, not just with video games. Suffice to say, I was at a low point with Hollow Knight, and after all that frustration with trying, I had convinced myself that Hollow Knight and Metroidvanias were not for me, and that I should just accept that and move on. However, in 2022, I would have a radical shift in that opinion with the start of a new game, Metroid Dread.
Oh, I see. Clever. Very clever.
Metroid Dread was unlike any other game I had played up until that point. It was accessible to new players with modernizations in combat, graphics, and gameplay that made a Metroidvania noob like me be able to understand and really immerse myself into the game. The strongest part of Metroid Dread is in its exploration, because while yes, this game does have a massive map that can be overwhelming if you just look at it with no experience in the game, when the game is actually in motion, the game performs flawlessly. Samus is unbelievably easy to control, and every single animation of movement and action that Samus takes in the game is so fluid it makes traversal in the game take literal seconds as you feel like a ninja bouncing from platform to platform, running, jumping, and all of which gets even further improved by later upgrades in the game. Furthermore, whenever you need to explore a new area of the map, the game makes it super easy for me to know where to go, as often I will find an upgrade, go through the route that the upgrade allows me to take right in front of me, which will loop back to other areas of the map so it is a single continuous experience, instead of me just wandering around like some asshole saying it's the game's fault. The world of Metroid Dread fills you with a sort of, dread, you could say. The architecture all around you speaks of alien civilizations and their histories, and as you go further on in the game, you learn of the sacrifices they made and the foes they clash against. And all of this is just on one planet in the Metroid universe, which is superb world building because it contextualizes the past planets Samus has been to, and what she has fought against is just one small piece in the greater universe in the world of Metroid. This type of world building and making the player seem almost utterly insignificant in the galactic scheme not only gives me an existential crisis, but is the perfect setting of the science fiction universe in the series it creates. This atmosphere that Metroid Dread meticulously builds up through its narrative is not just exclusive to it, but it is also built up within its gameplay. The most notable example of this is the Emmy, a robot where in the early game it can one-hit kill you pretty much every time it catches you, save for a few times where you can hit it with an incredibly small timing window. These enemies are a menace in your early game and will not hesitate to chase you down and put an end to you if they so much as glance at you. Later on in the game, you are given the ability to fight against the Emmys, but the developers made the incredibly smart decision of only allowing you to fight and kill these robots if you have a certain power-up and only if you manage to hit them enough while they are chasing you first. This is genius because not only does it keep the feeling of dread alive while you're being pursued by these things, but it also makes you feel accomplished by being able to take down what has been hunting you the entire game. Metroid Dread is spectacular and it is easily one of my favorite Nintendo games of all time. I highly recommend you play it for yourself because honestly, you have to play it to believe it. It is just that good. Metroid Dread, however, was also a setup for the second Metroidvania titan that I had yet to finish, and opened the door for me to finally defeat my nemesis, Hollow Knight. It was around this time between when I finished Metroid Dread and when I started Hollow Knight that I had a revelation based on watching one YouTube video in particular. The key to the video was the point, play the game, the people that enjoy the genre would enjoy the game. The first game I thought of when I watched this video was Hollow Knight. Hollow Knight is based primarily around exploring, with the mechanic that your map will get filled out after you venture out into the unknown, and usually you use the map to check your bearings or check for spots you haven't explored yet. So there I thought, fine, I will give Hollow Knight one more try. And I am so glad that I did, because it was an experience that truly captured my full attention and is a game that has made me feel truly immersed and absorbed within it. The systems that Hollow Knight employs feels both innovative and familiar at the same time, taking inspiration from the pillars in the Metroidvania genre, while also making the atmosphere similar to that of the Dark Souls games. The lore of the game is deep and makes for a very memorable setting, allowing for different locations like a crystal mining facility, a mushroom forest full of whimsy, and a city that's always raining. That's right, they put London, England in the game, fellas. Let's fucking go! Systems in the game such as the charm system, the way soul functions in the game, and all the traversal options you unlock by the end of the game gives it such a unique fingerprint of identity when compared to its peers in the genre. In the modern age where we are so used to being connected to one another and always wanting to know where you are or where you're going, having a game say, fuck you, if you want to succeed then get lost and buy a map from Nice Humming Man while you're at it, is very refreshing. It is evident that the developers of Hollow Knight had so much passion when making this game with all the charms, upgrades, monster types, and just sheer size of the map that it makes me look at the AAA industry and just say, what the hell are y'all even doing over here? I finally understood why Hollow Knight is loved by many, that getting lost is not a deficit to your gaming experience, but like all feelings, it is a tool that can be used as a mechanic in your game for player enjoyment. It is the most no-nonsense type of world building that I feel developers must have when they know that their world is interesting and engaging without having billions of NPCs repeat the exact fucking same exposition to you over and over again. JRPGs.
I am Ferdinand von Ayer. I am Ferdinand von Ayer. I am Ferdinand von Ayer.
The Metroidvania is a genre that has solidified itself as one that can provide some of the most unique and alien-feeling worlds in gaming, as they force you to thrust yourself into them headfirst with almost no sense of direction whatsoever. Thanks again everyone for sticking around to watch me fight with a fictional genre, but I hope that you found it interesting and can apply it within your own pursuits of trying to get into a genre that you feel is obtuse or just not for you. Thank you guys, and I will see you next time. Peace.